chuckle at the end. It just proves that it's live. This is James Robert Deal, and today is July the 23rd, 2016. The topic of conversation is going to be reforming our electoral system, reforming our campaign finance rules, and getting the money out of politics. At the end of this half hour, I'll also respond to all the emails that I've been getting. I don't get chats during the programs, but I do get emails, and I end up reading them after the program is over. So I'm sorry about that. So I'll try to respond to those. You know, I'm late bringing up the subject of election reform and campaign finance reform, and really, this is probably the crux of the problem. A politician needs to raise money because running for office, at least the way it's currently done, is pretty expensive. So there are groups which support politicians, organize for them, encourage groups to donate money in return for the politician favoring their side on an issue. A good example would be the pro-fluoride dentists, who are part of a very conspicuous organization to promote fluoridation on many different levels. Now, I'm just using that as an example. There's also forces that want a coal port built. I mean, even union employees make alliances with the big companies in order to I decided to close the window, eliminate some background noise there. So I think that election reform, campaign finance reform, public disclosure should all be addressed together, because they all overlap, and I think you can't do a good job of fixing one without fixing them all. Now, we have a Public Disclosure Commission, and if you want to run for office, you can take the easy filing reporting method, and as long as you certify that you're probably not going to raise more than $5,000, then you do mini reporting. You don't have to turn in the names of the people and the amounts of the people and what their occupation is and what their address is. But if you're going to raise more than $5,000, you need to predict that you will, and then go ahead and sign up for full reporting, even if it turns out that you raise less than $5,000. I've raised less than $5,000, but I'm doing full reporting. So I would appreciate some contributions, because I'm spending money to make this technology work. This is my method of reaching people. I can't afford to put billboards up. I can't afford to do TV ads or radio ads or newspaper ads, but I can do press releases to newspapers, and I can tweet and post on Facebook and email for a relatively low price. But even that costs money, so hit that donate button. At $1, hey, that's a pat on the back. I appreciate it. But if you can donate more, do so. The goals of my reform would be to simplify the process of campaign finance reporting. It is pretty complicated. This is now the 5th time I've run, and this is the first time I've done full reporting. So got to have that account balanced, and you got to show where all the money's coming from and where it's going to. The other purposes would be to open up the process so that people with good ideas but who don't have a lot of money and who are not insiders when it comes to the major political parties can afford to run. There are a lot of people who would do a better job than our career politicians, but who just feel that, well, they're not politicians. They don't have the connections. They don't know enough people. They don't know where to start. And so they don't even get considered. Now, Mr. Inslee is a career politician. He's an expert at pulling together the support of the Democratic Party. He's an expert at doing the polling and figuring out how you can get 50.1% of the vote. And so he's a triangulator. He takes these positions which are the least offensive to any group which might support him. And of course he couldn't come out against fluoridation because the majority of the people think fluoridation good. That's what they've heard all their lives, fluoridation good. Now, I cannot make any specific accusations about Jay Inslee and where he gets the $1 million that's in his war chest. But someone should inquire, and maybe at some point I should. But what I'm going to propose is a way to reduce the amount of money that it takes to run an election, and then to limit even more the amount that any one person or one couple can contribute, and to exclude corporations from contributing at all. Corporations are not people. They don't have the same rights that we have. They're artificial constructs designed to protect individuals from liability. How do you get from artificial construct designed to protect investors from further liability? They're liable for the maximum loss that the investors can suffer is the loss of the money they paid to buy the shares. So, other than that, they're completely immune from liability. So why would somebody who has no skin in the game have all the rights of a human being? Well, it makes absolutely no sense, and this law grew up through accident and through in the process of the modern corporation being evolved. There was a case that involved a railroad lawsuit, and this was back, I think, in the 1880s, and somehow the ruling, the summary of the ruling that went in the headnote said that corporations have a right of, I think, substantive due process or something like that, or equal protection of the laws. And the railroads were being taxed at a different rate for fencing or something else than were ordinary people. And so they brought the case and sued, saying they shouldn't be dealt with unfairly and that they shouldn't be taxed at a higher rate than a human. So the judge did not ground his decision in a theory that corporations are people, but the headnote written by the clerk, who happened to be a railroad guy, wrote it up to say that corporations have rights similar to those that humans have. And so from that, a whole line of cases has come down saying that corporations have these rights. The only real right they have is the right to procedural due process. They should get a hearing before the state of Washington says, you know, we're not going to buy gasoline from you because you're still drilling. You're still drilling for oil, and you're still drilling for natural gas. We want to do business with an energy company. We want to buy gas and oil from an energy company that's getting out of that business as quickly as possible and putting all new capital into solar and wind and wave and tide and geothermal. So we can discriminate against corporations, and they should be barred from contributing to political campaigns. It should also be illegal for a corporation to encourage its employees to contribute. or to say to its employees that we're going to reimburse you for donating the maximum amount to Mr. Deal's campaign, which is $2,000. And furthermore, we need to rein in the lobbyist business. Lobbyists should be barred by law from arranging or negotiating or suggesting or connecting up any links that might lead to campaign contributions. A lobbyist must only present issues. He must not dangle money in the eyes of the representative. So all those would be a great improvement. But I want now to focus on the aspect of how to reduce the amount of money it takes to run an election. And that leads me back to a different theory about how we would nominate our candidates. So let me diverge and talk about a proposal I have for a better way, a more democratic way to select the highest talent, the most talented people that we could get for elective office. And I'm going to focus on the office of governor. I would suggest that starting January 1st of 2020, that the election season is opened. And starting at that point, people have 60 days to gather signatures on a petition saying, I want James Deal to be a candidate. And if the supporters can get 1,000 signatures, or 500 signatures, or 5,000 or 10,000, the number was completely negotiable, then by the end of February, we now have a group of, let's say, 15, 20. Let's say we have 20 people who have gathered 5,000 signatures and are therefore going to be on the ballot, on the first ballot. So now it's March 1st, and what we would do in order to make all this affordable is to provide for each candidate, make sure that each one of them has a website that, and some coaching in how to post things on websites, and also a mechanism whereby candidates can accept contributions. Of course, we're going to limit the amount of contributions too. The state would also, let's say starting April 1st, or let's say March 1st, would publish a voter pamphlet introducing these 20 potential candidates. And then they would be encouraged to use TVW and to record not just 5-minute speeches, but more substantial speeches where they can explain exactly what they plan to do. So now they have their website, they have TVW, but also there would be advertising in newspapers and in radio and TV. Go to TVW, Channel 23 Comcast, or whatever station it is for the different carriers, and hear what the candidates have to say. The state would bear that cost, and the state would also buy newspaper space and give each candidate 5 column inches, 10 column inches to say what it is that they're going to accomplish, and then to give the reader links to their website and tell them how to get to TVW and see their speech, so that people, the general voting public, would be more aware of the different potential candidates. So then you would have from March through April and the 1st of May, you would have a first primary election. The second primary election would happen on August 2nd, just like our current primary. But we're going to have 2 stages before our current primary and final election. The first stage is the petition, which can be gathered between January and February, end of February, and is turned in. Then March 1st, you have the pamphlet published, or maybe a couple weeks thereafter. And then wait 2 months and you have your first primary. Now this first primary might be conducted electronically. I would think that there are ways to do this securely, but we want to keep the cost of this down. But even if we had to do it in the same way we do it now with paper ballots, that would be fine too. Democracy is an expensive thing, but it really does pay dividends. So now we're going to have the first primary around May 1st, and this group of 20 is narrowed down to maybe 4. And these 4 will then run in the second primary, which is going to be August the 2nd, first week in August, the first Tuesday in August. So between May, June, July. So for a 3-month period, the state is going to pay the cost of voter pamphlets, sent to all the registered voters, maybe sent to every house, maybe as inserts into newspapers, and giving each candidate a space where he can express his theories, where he can refer people to his website, where he can inform people to hear the roundtable discussions and the debates and the half-hour speeches on TVW, and there would be commercial television advertising encouraging people to go to TVW and see these speeches and debates, making people more aware of issues, more aware of the process. So then you would have your election in November, the first Tuesday of November. I would suggest a lower lid on campaign donations. I think it's currently $2,000 for a statewide race, but maybe it should be only $200. We want a lot of small contributions. We want none of them coming from corporations, none of them arranged by lobbyists, and we might have to go up against the latest Supreme Court decision. I'm blanking out on the name of it. I think it was 2011. But you know the one I'm talking about, the one that all the Democrats all want to repeal or overturn. So then when you get to the final election, I would also propose that we have what's called instant runoff voting. Instant runoff voting, or ranked choice voting. This is being discussed in Canada right now, and it's already used in other countries. It's used in the Australian House of Representatives and in many of the state legislatures in the states of Australia. So let's say that you're a Bernie guy. You love Bernie and you're really sorry that he didn't get the nomination. But you're in this for long term, and at least Hillary listens to Bernie and moves in his direction, and probably deep down in her hearts of hearts she might really want to be a progressive, but she's needed all that money and she took the money all those years. So by being a pragmatist, you vote for Hillary and you vote for Bernie as your backup choice, so that if Hillary doesn't win, then your vote goes to your backup choice. This is called instant runoff voting or ranked choice voting. It would give people the ability to vote for the person that they really like, because Bernie is their first choice, number one, and then Hillary is their backup, meaning if Bernie doesn't win, the second choice becomes the person that you voted for. Money in politics is a serious problem. If you're going to be a candidate and you're going to print up literature to go to every house in the state, and print up yard signs to be posted in every county, every city in the state, and have some presence on TV, and have big ads in the newspaper like Mr. Bryant had. I saw he had 2 full-page ads in the Seattle Times, and I clipped them out and I put them in my box where I throw all the campaign-related stuff. And he talked about how he liked to go hiking, and therefore he's an environmentalist. You know, Mr. Bryant, it's not quite that easy. Liking to fish, you need to do something about what's killing the fish. Liking to hike doesn't make you an environmentalist if you're in favor of coal trains and oil trains. So, what if you could run an effective campaign without printing up mailers going to each person in the state, each home in the state? The cost of robocalling, 1 cent a call, is probably another $20,000 worth of robocalling. And then you need campaign management, and you need billboards, you need radio ads. It's just very, very expensive. What if you had a way of making the whole process less expensive? It seems to me that by default the newspapers are in cahoots with our arrangement. They like our current arrangement because they get to publish ads, and the TV stations like it too because they make a killing during election season. Of course, newspapers don't want to offend the big grocery companies that buy those big ads in their newspapers. So they're subject to monetary election manipulation. So I'm going to go over here and open Outlook and just take a look at some of these emails. Just send an email to james@jamesdeal.com and I'll discuss it either now or in the next radio program. Every night, 8 o'clock, please pass the word. jamesrobertdeal.org/radio. Okay, let me pull down a little further to my inbox where I put all these emails. What do you propose that is any different from what Governor Inslee proposes or has done? This is from Roberts 9574 in Vancouver, Washington. Read all about it at jamesrobertdeal.org/job application. And there I go down the list of all the differences between Jay and me. I'm a member of the Green Progressive Bernieite wing of the Democratic Party. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the New Deal, minimum wage, 40-hour week, equal rights. And although Jay is liberal in many issues, he is part of the Democratic Leadership Council wing of the Democratic Party that was formed in the 1990s. Bill Clinton and Jay Inslee were there at the beginning. So that's the wing of the party that said that the Democratic Party is not the party of labor anymore, and that decided that it needed to raise large amounts of money to run media campaigns the way Clinton had done in his efforts, his races for governor in Arkansas. So they turned to the big corporations, and that's what we've got now, with most elected Democrats being members of this Democratic Leadership Council wing of the Democratic Party. So he's for mandatory vaccinations. He's for fluoridation. He's weak on the oil train issue. He's weak on the coal train issue. When we voted on whether to label GMOs, he took no position. In writing, he took no position. I think if you're going to write a letter, that you would at least go to the trouble to take a position. His secretary was nice enough to communicate back to me that he's not taking a position. His official position is he's not taking a position. So the caucuses went overwhelmingly for Bernie, but he's a superdelegate and he's going to vote for Hillary anyway. Now, I've told you I'm a pragmatist. I'll vote for Hillary if she's the nominee. If she doesn't get served with papers and indicted before the convention. So, Steve sends in and says, I have never supported in all or any politician's plans and know that unanimous approval will probably never be achieved. Nor do I think it should be if a democracy is to be healthy and workable. Right. We'll never unanimously agree. As such, while I have issues with Governor Inslee regarding his apparent lack of opposition to the oil terminal in Vancouver and his apparent support for tax relief to large corporations, I do not have any information about you. I would very much appreciate hearing from you. Otherwise, my inclination is to vote again for Governor Inslee, a known entity rather than an unknown or a blankety blank Republican. Thanks, Steve. So keep listening to these radio shows, and I've got more on my website than Mr. Inslee has on his. Another person wants to know what I think of Agenda 21. So, I don't like that new exam that's going around. So this person asks about McCleary. The McCleary case is the one that said that the state is failing to amply fund education. The McCleary case has been decided with no evidence what programs are not funded and where, why education funding lacks, what curricular programs, etc. are to be funded. Is it a precedent to fund anything? I'm not an expert on the McCleary case, but I do know enough about it to know that the Constitution says ample funding. So when in doubt, we should pay for education, and part of education is the teachers' salaries. And the state is not covering teachers' salaries in full, covering maybe 60, 70, 75% of their salaries, and the rest is raised through taxes that people vote on, and sometimes the levies don't pass. So there are poor districts that have definitely less money to pay their teachers. So And here's Kalki writes that I will be advertising for tomorrow's radio show on my Facebook. Thank you very much, Kalki. And then I've got a response from one of the other candidates. His name is Jonathan. He's a Bernie-crat running for governor from Mercer Island. And what the other, there's three of us who are progressive Democrats who are running. There's Mr. Dodds, Jonathan Dodds, and Mr. Rubenstein. Let me see if that's his correct name. Anyway, they're going around to libraries doing speeches and invited me to join, and I decided not to. I think I may invite them to join my program. And then I've got a comment about the organic state, and this person asks, come on, is this realistic? It costs more to do organic. There is a startup cost, but in the long run, you're not wasting money on poisons, and you're not poisoning your environment and yourself and the animals. You're not poisoning your farm workers, and you're producing a product that is healthy to eat and you can have pride in. And you have a product that will sell internationally at a higher price. And organic farmers are doing well. Everything can be grown organically, so we should grow everything organically because the runoff poisons the fish, and they're spraying Roundup on the wheat that is used to make bread. So unless you buy organic bread, you may very well be eating Roundup toast or Roundup bagels, Roundup noodles, because the wheat is sprayed with Roundup because Roundup kills it and causes it to dry out quicker. And quick is what we want. And Roundup is also being sprayed on alfalfa, which is baled up and fed to cows during the winter. So the milk you drink may be Roundup milk, and the beef that you eat may be Roundup beef. And of course the beeves and the chickens and the hogs are all fed Roundup soy. So for sure, when you're eating sausage, you're eating Roundup sausage. Here's an email from Steve Rubenstein inviting me to come to a Renton library. And this idea of driving all over the state to meet with just a few people, it seems to me to be inefficient. So Cassie says she's researching the candidates and found that your position on some critical issues resonates with me, given your stance on over-vaccination, fluoride, water quality, and Roundup and GMOs. I can't help but wonder where you stand on patients' rights to alternative care, and specifically medical marijuana. The recent legislation that just went into effect, 502, legalizing recreational and supposedly protecting patients' rights, has become a debacle. It effectively eliminated dispensaries and is sending patients to recreational stores. With patients being on the registry, it eliminates the sales tax because it is a medicine, but it imposes a 37% excise tax. Collectives are allowed, but are very restricted and far fewer in number. The number of collectives went from 1,500 to under 200. I keep hearing from patients who can no longer get their medicine because the state has been slow to roll out what the new law has specified. I'm also hearing that under the new law, and with patients having to be on the registry, the HIPAA laws do not apply to medical marijuana patients under a third-party payer loophole, because the only providers who are prescribing marijuana are naturopaths and MDs, and they're not supported in prescribing it. I didn't understand that argument. So, Cassie, if you can please explain that one a little bit better. Is she saying that the identity of those who register is not protected, and privacy, and can be obtained through freedom of information requests? She also seems to be saying that naturopaths and MDs are not qualified to write a prescription for medical marijuana. So I don't know the yes or no on that issue. This essentially leaves patients' personal information as well as their medical information up for grabs to whomever might access it. This could be the LCB, Liquor Control Board, or Department of Health, or hackers for that matter. Will you stand with medical marijuana patients to create better laws to protect patients' rights if you are elected? This is from Cassie. Yes, of course. It was a big mistake. 502 shut down the dispensaries. These are people who, for the most part, take marijuana as medicine, and a lot of times they eat it. They take it as an oil or have it cooked into food, and they're more interested in most cases in the low THC version of marijuana, the CBD version. I don't know what those abbreviations stand for, but it helps a person in pain to sleep, and it helps patients who have twitching and who have episodes. So it helps alcoholics to sleep. Alcoholics will tell you that they have to drink in order to fall asleep, and they take marijuana as a medicine, and they're able to sleep without being drunk. So it's a gateway drug for getting off of alcohol, which is a far worse. So I certainly hope that our dispensaries are not bankrupted by the time I get elected, should I be so fortunate. But to all of your friends who care about the dispensary law, I think the dispensaries hire a different type of personnel, people who know about the medicinal qualities of marijuana taken in different ways. The connections with those who produce it are different, whereas the people who work as salespeople in recreational shops are young kids who know the different highs, which is not necessarily what the person who buys from the dispensary is interested in. So yeah, that law really needs to be fixed. And then I have an email here from Arpate. What can you do as Washington State Governor to help us get the fluoride out of the water supply? What exactly needs to happen, and how long will it take? Well, I would fire the Chief Medical Officer for the Board of Health, the Department of Health, and hire a new head of the Department of Health, one who had a background in toxicology and was not just an MD, but also had studied naturopathic medicine, homeopathic medicine, Chinese medicine, Indian Ayurvedic medicine, multidisciplinary person. And he would certify the fluoridation materials not to comply with state law and turn the spigot off statewide. It's illegal. The law says that toxicological studies must be done, and they're not being done. So the fluoridation materials are just illegal. And when I wrote to the Department of Health, filed a formal appeal, and it was then appealed to Mr. Inslee, he would not respond to my arguments. So, very different approach on that topic. So, I am going to go out on music. And this time, I'm going to play it live. And you can hang on the line and listen as long as you like. And you won't hurt my feelings if you hang up. And I'm not promising that I won't Flub-a-dub, because I'm not a professional musician. I'll start with a song I wrote. So that's good evening for tonight, and I'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. and every night until August the 2nd.